Let me tell you something that truly worries me on a deep level. Just last week, a 67-year-old woman came into my office. She was elegant, very smart, and she lived a well-organized and stable life. And then she said something that honestly left me completely stunned. She looked at me and said, "Dr. Rizzo, I have fallen in love, and I feel like I'm losing control over my own life." In that moment, something became very clear to me. Falling in love after the age of 60 is no longer the same experience it was earlier in life. And I'm not talking about fairy tale romance or movie-style love stories. I'm talking about real, serious risks that almost no one dares to talk about openly. Because here's the truth. When you have spent decades building your life, creating your routines, and fighting hard for your independence, love can suddenly show up like an emotional earthquake that shakes everything you built. And here comes the part that is even more unsettling. Most people over 60 continue repeating the same serious mistakes again and again. These mistakes cost them their emotional stability, their freedom, their clarity, and in some cases, even their savings or entire financial security. Before I go deeper, if this topic feels meaningful to you, give this video a like right now. And if you want to receive more content that can protect you during this stage of life and help you make wiser, healthier decisions, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Information like this can truly change a life. Not only yours, but also the life of someone close to you. Stay with me, because what I'm going to explain today might save you from one of the most painful and destructive experiences a person can go through at this age. And no, I am not exaggerating at all. Let's get straight to the heart of the issue. The first serious danger of love after 60 has a very clear name: confusing loneliness with love. And please listen very carefully now, because this part is extremely important. Once you reach your 60s, it is very common that you have already gone through significant losses. Maybe you have lost a long-term partner. Maybe you went through a divorce after many years of marriage. Maybe your children have grown up, moved far away, built their own families, and suddenly your once busy home feels much too large and frighteningly silent. This kind of loneliness, this heavy emptiness inside the house and inside the heart, feels like a fresh wound that never fully closes. And when someone shows up who pays attention to you, who listens to you, who makes you feel seen again, your brain does something incredibly risky. It interprets that feeling of relief as love, but it isn't love. Let me be completely honest. In over 30 years of clinical experience, I have watched wonderful, educated, successful people fall into disastrous relationships simply because they couldn't separate the emotional hunger for company from the true feeling of love. And do you want to know what is most frightening? That this confusion after age 60 creates consequences far more serious than when you're 20 or 30. Why is that? Because time feels different now. There is a sense of urgency inside you. You start thinking, I don't have time to waste. This might be my last chance to feel happiness again. And this exact thought makes people hurry into situations they know deep down they should avoid. It makes them ignore obvious red flags. It pushes them into relationships that move way too fast. I have seen people move in together in less than 3 months, mix their finances in 6 months, and exactly 1 year later sit in front of me completely broken, wondering how their life turned upside down so quickly. Because here comes the uncomfortable truth no one likes to hear. Loneliness is healed through human connection, not necessarily through romance. Your need for closeness can be satisfied through real friendships, social groups, community activities, or rediscovering hobbies and passions you once loved. But when you make another person the only cure for your loneliness, you are not building a relationship based on love, you are building one based on dependency. And emotional dependency after 60 is especially dangerous because it disguises itself. It pretends to be deep honesty. It feels like finally finding your soul mate. It feels like wanting to make the most of the years you have left. But wait, it gets even heavier. We need to talk about the second danger. The pressure of time that completely distorts your ability to judge things clearly. When you're 25 and a relationship ends, you think, it's all right. I still have my whole future ahead of me. You heal, grow, learn from the experience, and move forward. But when you're over 60, your inner voice whispers something completely different. It says, this might be your last chance. If you let this go, you will end up alone for the rest of your life. This fear, this almost primal terror of being alone in old age, is one of the strongest emotional manipulation triggers that exists. And I want you to understand something essential. This fear is not stupid or crazy. It is deeply human. The idea of growing older without companionship is terrifying for many people, but this is exactly where the real danger begins. Decisions made from fear always lead to disaster. Let me tell you about Roberto. He's 64, a retired engineer, widowed for 3 years, with 2 grown children living in other cities. Roberto met Patricia at a dance event. She was 58, divorced, lively, sweet, everything he felt was missing in his quiet, repetitive life. After only 2 weeks, they saw each other every single day. After a month, she was practically living in his house. After 3 months, he asked her to marry him. His children told him gently, "Please slow down. You barely know her." But do you know what Roberto said in response? "You're young. You have plenty of time. I don't. I won't waste the rest of my life waiting for the perfect moment." 6 months after they legally married, Roberto discovered that Patricia had large debts she had never mentioned. And she expected him to pay them because, in her words, that's what a good husband does. Her cheerful and outgoing personality also came with daily social outings, dinners, and activities, all funded from his bank account. But the financial part wasn't even the true nightmare. What hurt him the most was the emotional blackmail he faced any time he tried to set limits. She would cry or accuse him, saying things like, "You don't love me anymore, you regret marrying me. Maybe I should leave you so you can go back to being lonely again, like before." And that was the perfect trap. Horrified at the idea of being alone once more, Roberto constantly gave in. He lost his peace, his independence, his connection with his children, and a large piece of his savings, all because he made decisions from fear and the idea of now or never. But here is something almost no one ever tells you. This time, pressure is fake. Yes, you heard that correctly. It is an illusion created by fear. The belief that after 60 your time is running out to find love is a psychological trick the mind plays. Reality is very different. More and more people find meaningful relationships later in life. Thanks to technology, social platforms, and longer life expectancy, you now have more ways to meet people than any generation before you. But when you convince yourself that you are running out of time, your brain switches into scarcity mode. And in scarcity mode, you accept things you never should. You overlook what you shouldn't ignore. You tolerate behaviors that damage your well-being. Because in a mind ruled by fear, any companionship feels better than none. But this is false. A dangerous lie. A toxic relationship after age 60 doesn't only hurt emotionally, it can physically damage your health. Chronic stress from an unhealthy relationship weakens the immune system, raises the risk of heart problems, increases anxiety, and harms your mental balance. Being alone is 1,000 times better than being badly accompanied, especially after 60. But there is even more you need to know. There is a third danger, one even more hidden and subtle than the others. we need to discuss something many people consider uncomfortable, yet it is completely necessary: money and personal wealth in relationships later in life. And before you think this sounds cold or overly suspicious, let me explain something important. This is not about being greedy or untrusting. It is about safeguarding yourself. Because here is the harsh truth. After the age of 60, you probably have something worth protecting. Maybe you own a house you worked your whole life to pay off. Maybe you have retirement funds, savings, investments, or property meant for your children. And sadly, there are people who purposely look for relationships with older adults for financial gain. Yes, it really is that serious. Of course, I am not saying that everyone who approaches you at this stage of life has bad intentions. Many people are genuine. But emotional and financial predators absolutely exist, and people over 60 are especially appealing targets. Why is that? First, because you are more likely to have money or assets. Second, because loneliness can make you more emotionally exposed. And third, because your generation often grew up trusting others more, unlike younger generations who are used to scams, digital manipulation, and constant caution. Let me tell you about Mercedes. She was 66, a retired university professor with a solid pension and her own home in a good neighborhood. She met Javier one afternoon in a cafe. He was 62, polite, gentle, and well-spoken. He brought her flowers, called her every day, sent her sweet messages, even recited poetry. Mercedes felt alive again. After years of emptiness, she finally felt appreciated and seen. After 4 months of dating, Javier told her he was going through temporary money problems. His company had collapsed. He was in debt, but he assured her everything would soon be fine because he had a new project almost ready. Mercedes, completely in love, lent him money. "It's only temporary," she told herself. "He would do the same for me if I needed it." 2 months later, Javier asked for more money so he could finish the project once and for all. Mercedes took out a mortgage on her home to help him, and you can already guess what happened next. Javier vanished with everything. Mercedes lost her house. At 66, she had to move into a tiny apartment, return to work, and face her children's anger. Children who had warned her many times to be careful. But the worst wound was not the financial destruction. The deepest hurt was the collapse of her self-esteem. "How could I be so foolish?" she asked me during our session. "I am educated, successful, intelligent. How could I fall for this?" But Mercedes was not foolish at all. Mercedes was human. Love mixed with loneliness and longing can blind anyone. It makes you want to believe the best. It makes you ignore things you would normally question. It makes you excuse strange behavior because you hope everything is fine. And here is the most important truth. Predators are experts at spotting emotional weaknesses. They know exactly how to talk. They know how to make someone who has felt unseen for a long time feel special again. They know how to create a false feeling of deep connection very quickly. They know how to start with small requests that slowly grow into manipulation and exploitation. And this kind of manipulation is not always about directly asking for money. Sometimes it appears in far more subtle forms. Maybe he asks you to put a property in his name for convenience. Maybe he tries to convince you to change your will and reduce your children's involvement because they don't truly support your love. Maybe he slowly moves into your home without sharing expenses. Maybe he uses your credit cards or persuades you to sign for his debts. And the most disturbing part, these requests are almost always coated in romantic words. Phrases like, "If you really loved me," or "I thought we were partners," or "Why don't you trust me?" So what should you do? Become paranoid? Suspect everyone you meet? Absolutely not. But having strong self-protection skills is essential. Never combine financial responsibilities with someone until you truly know who they are. And by truly know, I mean at least a full year of consistency, stability, and transparency. Talk to your children or trusted people before making money-related decisions involving your partner. Keep separate bank accounts. Protect your assets legally. And if you plan to marry or move in together, think about a prenuptial agreement. It may not feel romantic, but it is intelligent and necessary. Because here is the truth. Real love honors your independence and respects your financial safety. If someone pressures you, manipulates your emotions, or tries to make you feel guilty for wanting to guard what you've built, that person is not acting out of love. They are using you. But there is another danger that almost no one mentions, and it is incredibly important. It is the clash between two fully developed life stories. This is something that barely matters when you are young, but it becomes huge after 60. At this age, both people carry entire worlds within them. You bring decades of memories, wounds, routines, and beliefs. You are no longer blank pages. You are complete books, filled with meaningful chapters, some joyful, some painful, all of them shaping who you are now. And when two whole books try to join into a single story, conflict naturally shows up. Think about it. By 60, you have habits that have been with you for years. You wake up at a specific time. You eat the same breakfast. You have certain rituals in your home. You have adult children who are part of your life. Maybe grandchildren you see often. You have old friendships that have lasted half a lifetime with their own patterns and history. You have beliefs about politics, family, religion, and values that run deep. You have your own way of using money, organizing your home, planning vacations, and keeping your life in order. And then a new person enters this carefully built universe. It is a huge challenge, not because love can't survive, but because blending two complete lives is far more difficult than merging two young lives that are still open and flexible. It demands patience, emotional maturity, the willingness to adjust, and the ability to let go of certain old habits without losing who you are. The things that don't matter at 20 can become enormous obstacles at 60. Let me give you a clear example. Eduardo and Sylvia. He was 68, widowed. She was 65, divorced. They met at a book club, felt a strong connection, and soon moved in together. In the beginning, everything felt magical, but after just 3 months, the differences started to appear. Eduardo preferred early dinners, watched the news at 6:30, and went to bed by 9 p.m. Sylvia liked to eat around 9 p.m., stayed awake until midnight, and enjoyed binge-watching shows. Eduardo was very tidy and organized. Sylvia, on the other hand, was more relaxed and often left things around the house. But the real conflicts ran much deeper. Eduardo's son would come every Sunday with the grandchildren. To him, that was sacred family time. Sylvia, however, felt they never had private moments because family was always around. Sylvia also met her friends twice a week, which Eduardo interpreted as rejection. He thought that as a couple they should spend more time together. Then came the most sensitive area. Eduardo had conservative views. Sylvia was more progressive. At first they avoided these topics, but soon nearly every discussion became a minefield. What happened next? Each tried to change the other. Eduardo wanted Sylvia to follow his routines. Sylvia wanted Eduardo to be more spontaneous and flexible. But neither of them gave in, because both thought, at this age, I won't change anymore. This is the fundamental problem of love after 60. Flexibility is exactly what is needed at a stage of life where change feels hardest. Not out of stubbornness, but because the brain and habits have become deeply ingrained. Patterns are stable, identity is fixed. Changing them takes consistent, conscious effort, something many are unwilling or unable to do anymore. Then a quiet struggle begins. Resentment grows. Comparisons with the life you had alone start creeping in. And what started as love slowly turns into a life together filled with tension and small daily hurts. I have seen couples literally fall ill because of this stress. Anxiety, insomnia, digestive problems, and even physical illness. The strain of trying to combine two complete lives without the right tools or mindset is immense. And here is something few people talk about openly. You do not have to move in together. Yes, that is correct. In today's world, people over 60 can have a deep, stable, and meaningful relationship without living under the same roof. There is even a term for this: living apart together. You live separately but remain emotionally close. Both partners maintain their space, independence, and routines. You meet regularly, share important experiences, but at the end of the day, each returns to your own home. For many over 60, this arrangement is ideal. It preserves the magic of connection, reduces conflict, and respects individuality. Society often tells us that true love means sharing a home, that living separately shows a lack of commitment. That is a false belief. True intimacy is not about a shared roof. It is about respect, emotional support, and being truly present for each other. Now, we must approach an even more sensitive topic: sexuality later in life, and how it can sometimes become an emotionally risky anchor. We need to speak honestly about something society often avoids. People over 60 are still sexual beings. They still crave closeness and physical intimacy. Attraction does not vanish with age, it only changes form. But if someone has gone years, sometimes decades, without physical intimacy, returning to it can feel overwhelmingly intense. And this is where one of the greatest dangers appears: confusing the intensity of physical desire with real love. Let me clarify. If you have been alone for many years, if the last intimate experience feels like a distant memory and suddenly someone touches you, looks at you with desire, and makes you feel attractive again, your brain is flooded with chemicals: oxytocin, dopamine, endorphins, the natural cocktail that bonds people together. This surge can easily make someone believe they have found the love of their life. In truth, often it is simply the relief of satisfying a basic, long-deprived human need. Many have told me, "Dr. Rizzo, I have never felt anything like this. It must be true love." And I usually ask, how do you know it is love and not simply desire after a long emotional drought? This distinction is critical. If you make major decisions, moving in, marrying, sharing money or assets, based only on physical attraction, you are building a relationship on sand. Sexuality is wonderful, natural, deeply human, but it is not enough. After 60, confusing desire with love can lead you to commit to someone who is emotionally or morally unsuitable. There is another aspect rarely discussed: the pressure to perform. After 60, our bodies naturally change, yet many feel a sudden obligation to prove themselves, to avoid disappointing their partner, to show that they are still desirable. This pressure can push people to tolerate behaviors they would have never accepted in the past. I have seen women accept disrespect simply because they feel desired again, and men remain in toxic relationships because they feel young and invigorated by their partner's attention. Physical intimacy can become a golden trap, enjoyable, intoxicating, yet dangerously binding. It can tie you to relationships that give very little emotionally. But here lies a liberating truth. You deserve a relationship where everything aligns: respect, clear communication, emotional support, compatibility, and yes, physical joy. You should not have to choose between love and desire. You should not settle for, "at least someone touches me." You deserve a connection that is complete, honest, and balanced. Accepting less robs you not just of a healthy relationship, but of the possibility of a love that elevates you instead of draining you. Physical closeness may feel comforting, yet it can create a trap that makes you tolerate behaviors you would have otherwise rejected. This is why the awareness of all aspects of desire and love is so essential. You deserve a relationship where respect, emotional care, true compatibility, and physical pleasure coexist. You do not have to compromise. Settling for less deprives you not only of a healthy, fulfilling partnership, but also of a love that can truly empower and uplift you. And finally, there is one last danger, perhaps the most painful of all. The sixth and ultimate risk. The devastating effect a poorly chosen relationship can have on your family and your emotional legacy. After 60, you are no longer just living for yourself. You are part of a whole network of relationships, children, grandchildren, siblings, friends, people who have shared your life for decades. And when you introduce a new partner into this web, especially too quickly or without careful thought, the consequences can be enormous. I have seen entire families break apart because late-life relationships were rushed or poorly managed. Children may cut off contact, feeling that a stranger is intruding or manipulating their parent. Grandchildren may lose touch with their grandparents. Inheritances can disappear. Family traditions can crumble when a new partner insists on changing the rules. And the most painful part? Many of these breaks are permanent. Consider Carlos. He was 69, father of 3 children, grandfather of 5, widowed for 4 years. He met Lucia and fell deeply in love. When his children asked him to take things slowly, he accused them of selfishness. Lucia fueled the fire, telling him, "Your children only care about your money. I am the only one who truly loves you." Blinded by passion, Carlos began to distance himself from his family. He changed his will, canceled family gatherings, and slowly lost everything that had been the foundation of his life. 3 years later, the relationship ended suddenly. Lucia disappeared, taking a significant part of his assets. When Carlos tried to reconnect with his children, it was too late. The wounds were deep. Only one child returned. The other 2 never forgave him. Carlos passed away 2 years later, surrounded by silence. That is the real cost of impulsive decisions after 60. It is not just about your personal happiness. It is about the emotional legacy you leave behind. Think about it. You have spent decades building relationships. You were there for birthdays, graduations, weddings. You held your grandchildren, created memories that are part of your life story. All of that can unravel in a few months if you choose the wrong partner. And here is something you must understand. Your adult children have the right to be concerned. Not because they want to control you, but because they care. Because they see warning signs you may miss in the excitement of new love. I have often heard people say, "My children don't want me to be happy." In most cases, that is not true. They do not want to see you hurt, exploited, or manipulated. They do not want someone who has just entered your life to destroy what you and your family have built over decades. That does not mean your children should make the decisions for you. Your autonomy is sacred. But it does mean that you should listen to them, hear their concerns without judgment, and consider them carefully. Sometimes, emotional distance gives clarity that you cannot achieve in the middle of infatuation. Now, let me show you the other side, a healthy story. Maria, 65, met Roberto. Her children were cautious at first, but she listened to them. She introduced Roberto gradually, without making sudden changes. She kept her family traditions, her separate finances, and her regular gatherings. Roberto respected her life. He did not push, isolate, or disrupt her family. Over time, he earned everyone's trust. 2 years later, Maria's family fully accepted him because they saw that he added value to her life rather than taking it away. That is the key. Balance. You can have a new love and preserve your family ties at the same time. It is not an either-or choice. But if a new partner forces you to choose, distances you from your loved ones, or turns you against them, that is a major warning sign. True love never separates. True love connects. It respects the fact that your family is part of who you are. Anyone who demands that you cut off your past is not seeking love. They are seeking control. And control, isolation, and separation are the first steps toward abuse. I want you to remember this. Your legacy is not measured in money or possessions. Your legacy is in the memories you leave behind, the relationships you nurture, and how your family will remember you. How do you want to be remembered? As someone who spent their final years in love, respect, and harmony, or as someone who lost everything because of a relationship that was never truly worth it? The choice is yours. What you decide today will shape the story told about you tomorrow. Does this mean you should never fall in love after 60? Or that you must resign yourself to loneliness? Absolutely not. Love after 60 can be beautiful, deep, and meaningful, often more mature, calm, and fulfilling than any love before. Many people tell me that the love they found in this stage of life was the most authentic, honest, and peaceful they have ever experienced. That makes sense. By this age, you know your boundaries. You know what you want and what you do not. You no longer waste time on games or toxic relationships. You look for genuine companionship, meaningful conversation, and someone to share the later sunsets of life with. All of that is precious. All of that is worth protecting. But it requires awareness, patience, and respect for your own life and roots. Do not rush. Do not give in to the pressure of now or never. Do not mistake loneliness for love. Do not sacrifice your autonomy, your wealth, or your family for the sake of being in a relationship. After decades of experience with older adults, I have learned one thing clearly. Temporary loneliness is far better than permanent bad company. Being alone is not the worst situation. The worst situation is being with someone who manipulates you, isolates you, controls you, or takes from you. The love you deserve after 6 decades of life is one that respects you, protects you, and enriches your life. If someone truly loves you, they will wait until you feel safe. They will respect your pace, appreciate what you have built, and fit into your life without tearing it apart. They will want to meet your family and understand the history that precedes them. They will never make you choose between your past and your future. If they are not willing to do that, they do not love you. They simply need you, or worse, they are using you. Ask yourself, does this relationship give you freedom or make you feel smaller and controlled? Does it bring you closer to your family or drive you away from them? Does it respect your independence or constantly question it? Does it celebrate your achievements or try to control them? The answers to these questions tell you everything you need to know. So yes, fall in love after 60. Allow yourself to open your heart. Give yourself a chance at love. But do not forget the greatest danger: the harm a poorly chosen relationship can cause to your family and your life's work. After 60, your love touches everyone around you: your children, grandchildren, siblings, friends, the people who have shared your journey for decades. Introducing someone new too quickly can have far-reaching consequences. I have seen families torn apart because of rushed relationships, children cutting ties, grandchildren losing connection, inheritances disappearing, family traditions lost, all because a new partner wanted to impose their own rules. That is why every new love must enter your life slowly, mindfully, and with full respect for everything you have built. People who truly love you do not demand that you sever the bonds that sustain you. Instead, they work to become part of your world, understanding your relationships, habits, and priorities. True love does not storm in and destroy. It is a light that gently integrates into your existing life. The truth is simple. After 60, your love affects not just you, but all those connected to your story. You carry a dual responsibility: stand firm for your values and boundaries, and protect the emotional space your family has nurtured for decades. Love must be a bridge, not a knife. It must add to life, not bring conflict. Anyone entering your life must understand this, respect it, and prove it through actions, not empty words. Remember this: true love in later life is not a whirlwind that blinds you with big promises. It is the love that calms, respects, and enriches you. The love that takes nothing but gives generously. The love that connects rather than divides. If someone can offer you peace, safety, and joy without destroying what makes you who you are, they are worth your time, tenderness, and heart. Then, and only then, do you see clearly that love after 60 is not only possible, but can be the most mature, gentle, and wise love you have ever experienced.